Thank you, High Commissioner. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very grateful to you for hosting us and to the people of Sri Lanka for their warm hospitality. And I want to pay tribute to all the members of civil society here this afternoon who are working to help Sri Lanka recover from conflict and extend the rule of law and human rights for all. And I'm delighted that several of my colleagues from the Foreign Ministers' meeting have been able to join us here today as well. I'm very pleased this is one of my first engagements of this visit this week. It enables me to address a subject that is very close to my heart, as you've heard, the need to shatter the culture of impunity for rape and sexual violence in conflict worldwide. No country is immune from the scourge of sexual violence, which takes many different forms in all our societies. And sadly, in every major conflict in our lifetime, on every continent, including in the heart of Europe, we have seen sexual violence used as a weapon of war to achieve military ends, to terrorize political opponents, or to target entire ethnic or religious groups. The statistics on this, when they are available, are overwhelming. An estimated 50,000 women were raped during the war in Bosnia, as many as 500,000 during Rwanda's 100-day genocide, and over 200,000 women in the Democratic Republic of Congo since 1996. What makes these figures even more shocking is that only a handful of people responsible have ever been brought to justice because of a worldwide culture of impunity. Victims are left traumatized, often struggling with disease, unwanted pregnancies, and rejection from their communities, and the circle of injustice and conflict is perpetuated. And that is why in May last year I began a campaign together with UNHCR Special Envoy Angelina Jolie with the goal of rallying international action to eradicate sexual violence in conflict worldwide. We've taken this campaign all over the world, and this week I'm bringing it to the whole Commonwealth, to all of our 53 countries and to Sri Lanka itself. Sri Lanka is still emerging from 3 decades of conflict that has caused immense suffering, claiming thousands of lives on both sides and displacing hundreds of thousands of people. And as you in Sri Lanka know far better than outsiders ever will, it was a harrowing and prolonged conflict where communities were ripped apart, innocent civilians killed, including by terrorism here in the heart of Colombo, as I saw for myself when I was here 13 years ago, and serious human rights violations committed on both sides, including sexual violence. As is clear from conflicts around the world, dealing with a legacy of sexual violence, bringing those responsible to justice, and helping survivors to rebuild their lives with dignity is absolutely critical to reconciliation and to long-term stability. Since the end of the war in 2009, there has been some progress here in Sri Lanka, which we welcome. Civilians have been resettled, infrastructure rebuilt, landmines removed, provincial elections held in the north, and many former Tamil combatants reintegrated back into Sri Lankan society. A region once cut off from the rest of the country and the world is now reconnected to it. But to date, too little has been done to hold people to account for crimes of sexual violence. The allegations include reports from the UN panel of experts that rape was used by government forces during the final stages of the conflict and before, claims from Human Rights Watch that sexual torture has been used to extract confessions, and continued concerns over the vulnerability of women and girls to sexual harassment and abuse, particularly the 90,000 war widows living in areas with a large military presence. I will be urging the Sri Lanka government to investigate these cases as they deserve to be investigated. And that means carrying out credible and independent investigations. It also means providing greater support to victims and passing strong witness protection legislation so that justice is not undermined by social stigma and intimidation. The British government, along with other members of the international community, has consistently called for an independent, thorough and credible investigation into allegations of violations and abuses of international humanitarian and human rights law by both sides in the military conflict. And in the absence of an independent investigation, pressure will mount for an international investigation, including from the United Kingdom. We want to help Sri Lanka in any way that we can. We've already funded projects to establish a helpline for victims of domestic abuse, to increase police support for women and children, and to train the local media in investigative techniques that will help them shine a light on this issue. But we are ready to widen this assistance and to deepen our cooperation further. And we would like to see Sri Lanka join our international campaign to end sexual violence globally, which is making encouraging progress worldwide, as the High Commissioner just mentioned. At the G8 in London in April this year, we secured a declaration from some of the world's leading economies, promising to work together on sexual violence and conflict. In June, we gained unanimous support for a landmark UN Security Council resolution, the first in this area for many years. And in September, 134 countries down the whole alphabet, from Australia to Zambia, endorsed a historic declaration at the UN General Assembly promising to end the use of rape as a weapon of war. In that declaration, over 2/3 of the membership of the UN recognized that rape and serious sexual violence are grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions and their first protocol, so that suspects can be apprehended wherever they are in the world. We pledged together not to allow amnesties for sexual violence in peace agreements, so that these crimes can no longer be swept under the carpet. We promised to adopt a new international protocol in 2014 to help ensure that evidence collected can stand up in court. And we pledged to help victims gain access to justice and long-term support, as well as to protect civil society organizations, including women's groups and human rights defenders. The declaration and the support that it has received represent a major step forward. But this is just the beginning. Now we have to turn these political commitments into lasting, practical action. Action that makes a real difference on the ground. And that is why next June I will host a summit in London that will bring together the states that have endorsed the declaration and representatives from civil society, judiciaries and militaries from around the world to build even greater momentum, to launch our new international protocol, and to agree practical steps to end impunity for these crimes. As an example of the practical action we want others to join, we've created a British team of experts that has been deployed 5 times this year alone to the Syrian border, to the DRC, to Libya, to Bosnia-Herzegovina, Kosovo and Mali, where they have trained health professionals, strengthened the capacity of the armed forces, and helped raise local standards of investigation. In every instance, they have focused on the specific needs of the country and complemented the work of the UN and other agencies on the ground. And this week, I will be calling on the Commonwealth to set the lead in ending war zone rape worldwide. This organization represents nearly 1/3 of the world's population, and I will be calling on all our fellow members to endorse the UN General Assembly Declaration. I will also ask the Commonwealth Secretariat to take practical action to implement the Declaration's commitments by integrating them into the Commonwealth's wider work on women, peace and security. This includes providing protection and support to women's groups and human rights organizations, improving the monitoring and documentation of sexual violence cases so that more perpetrators can be brought to justice, and widening and deepening women's participation in civil society and political decision-making processes so that they have a voice in the decisions that affect their lives. The Commonwealth Charter, the document with which we commit to uphold our common values and further our joint aspirations, states that gender equality and women's empowerment are essential components of human development and basic human rights. If we want to demonstrate the true meaning of these words through our actions, then we must stamp out abuse of women in all its forms, whether it is in a family home, a prison cell, or a conflict zone. By taking a lead on an issue as critical as this one, the Commonwealth can truly act as a global force for good, living up to the standards of universal human rights that we agreed in our Charter. Too many of the Commonwealth's people have suffered sexual violence in conflict, both in the past and in the present. So let us act now and act clearly and decisively to help maintain this international momentum and do everything possible to ensure that nobody has to suffer the burden, shame and indignity of these crimes in the future, in Sri Lanka or anywhere else in the world. So thank you for all the part that you all play in that, and I look forward to our questions and discussion. Thank you very much indeed.